The design of the roof is supposed to look like a wave. They had a mandate, they had to get 5% of the energy for the building had to come from renewables. So we had to get a solar system on there. But also they won so many design awards, they didn't want the solar panels affecting the aesthetics of the building. So the challenge was to try and get 5% of the energy supplied by the solar, and it's an astronomical amount of energy that's used by that building. But then to try and make that system blend in completely with the architecture of the building was quite the challenge.
Presented by Your Energy Answers.
At the YEA podcasts, we usually always have a new guest, but this time we actually welcome somebody back for the second time, and it's Matt Hartney from Inspire Energy. And I met Matt a couple of weeks ago when he came and installed for us a SunGrow battery system, and he told me about his latest big project, the Sydney Fish Market, which is a very prestigious project. But then he told me about the journey, and I got, oh my God, what an up and down. And so I thought I'd have you in again. So tell us a little bit about what you've been up to since the last time. We're now just starting with the battery rebate, so that's going to be a big thing. We'll talk about that a bit. But you must have been very, very happy when you won a very prestigious project. So how did all this start?
We were, yes. Well, it was about 2 years ago nearly we tendered for that project. So it's been a bit of a journey to get it through to now finally get it actually installed and commissioned. So it's been quite a long sort of a process.
But in the first place, you didn't actually tender for it, is it? The New South Wales government, tell me I always love this. It's a bit like the Opera House when they have architect-designed buildings that's supposed to shine, and the architects think it up, and then somebody has to realise it, and then the engineers go, what the hell was he smoking when he was thinking that kind of thing? So it was a bit of a situation like that. So what happened? You didn't participate in the first tender, did you?
No, I don't think so. So we weren't part of the original tendering round, and then they went back out to tender. They couldn't find the right solution or the right company to actually execute the solution.
So hang on. So they did a tender, and I think what it is on the top of the building, they're little triangles, and so they look from the distance visually a bit like fish scales, or what is it, 50,000 pieces of Louvre sitting there? What was the thinking behind it in the first place, visually?
Well, the design of the system, the design of the roof is supposed to look like a wave. So the whole roof is designed to look like a wave pattern. They had a mandate, they had to get 5% of the energy for the building had to come from renewables. So we had to get a solar system on there. But also they won so many design awards, they didn't want the solar panels affecting the aesthetics of the building. So the challenge was to try and get 5% of the energy supplied by the solar, and it's an astronomical amount of energy that's used by that building.
Lots of freezers and stuff like that, isn't it?
Yeah. So to get the solar on there was quite a significant size system. But then to try and make that system blend in completely with the architecture of the building was quite the challenge.
Because I say in my videos, usually to architects, guys, please just give us a flat roof, easy for solar. Don't give me all the higgledy-piggledy little gables and all that. But this thing has like little pimples, triangles all over. How many?
So we've putting solar on 263 of the little triangles. So each triangle pod has panels on it. There's 3 panels on each pod, and there's 263 of the pods that have PV on them.
Right. So let's get back to the pods in a minute. But initially, so they sent the tender out, and how many kilowatts do they actually want it on the roof overall?
So the total kilowatts is 265 kilowatts of solar generation.
So I'm giving you not a flat roof. I give you a roof that has 256, did you say? Little pods?
263, yep.
263, get it right. 263 little triangles, which is really what solar doesn't like. And they say, we need close to 300 kilowatts on there, please, guys. Here's the tender. And they didn't get a single one that said they can do it.
No, so I'm a bit of a yes. I love the challenge. So as soon as they said, can you do it? I said, yeah, of course we can do it. Have you seen this sort of product before? I said, yeah, I've seen this product before. At a trade show, I've seen little demos of a few products when I was in Munich. But to be honest, we hadn't really done too much with it. But I always like a challenge. So I said yes, and that's sort of where it all started. I was the only person who actually said, yeah, we can definitely make it happen.
But everybody else goes, you're insane, and you go, yeah, no problem, it?
Yep, that's pretty much how we won the job originally. We just, we could definitely do it. And then we just jump in and try and make it work. We've done that with quite a lot of projects. Everything I've done, I've always said, yeah, I can make it work. My very first forte into solar, I'd started the business. I'd only ever actually done one job. So I'd done one job, which was my parents' house. So I did a 3.3 kilowatt system on my parents' house. Then a friend of mine worked for a large electrical MERP. They had a big solar rollout with the BER program for schools. They came to me and said, because I obviously had the solar license, I'd done one job. But they said, we've got this project. There's 50 schools. Each school needs a 5.5 kilowatt system installed on it. Is that something you could do? I said, yeah, of course we can. So then he came back to me and said, we need a portfolio. So we need to be able to see a portfolio of jobs that you've done just to show that you got some experience and we can give you the contract.
So the bureaucrats sign off on the job.
So myself and my wife, we actually drove around Sydney trying to find some actual solar jobs. I was in the front of people's houses getting a photo of myself with the solar panels in the background. I put a little spiel together. I said, yeah, we've done heaps of solar. And that was how I got into solar. And then from that contract,
I'm not sure if this is helping to get the integrity license for the company.
Probably not.
But look, I've done a very similar thing. I was a clapper loader and at a film shoot once. A German company came out. I was in film in those days. And I had never loaded film into an Ariflex SR, which was a model at the time.
Yeah.
I'd done always the previous one, but it was very different. And a camera guy with the salt and pepper shaker the day before I had to do the job was explaining to me what I had to do. And in the interview, I also said, oh, yeah, no problem. Except then on the day I'm going, I worked it out. But, yeah, so you had balls on your line. You kind of got that done. Okay. But then when you saw the plan with all those little, you call them pods, which are triangle and therefore the solar panels are square, how did you solve the problem?
Well, originally our first design was to make glass, so double glazed glass solar PV. There was a company we were working with in Switzerland that made a panel so you could actually have them cut to size. So we're going to engulf the entire triangles with solar PV. So that was the original plan to do that. Budget became a bit of an issue there with that sort of design.
Swiss panels, they're usually not cheap.
No, nothing about the project was cheap. But that was our original plan to do it that way. Then we came up with a design to try and get the budget right. What we did is we then came up with a design to then use a conventional solar panel size and then get aluminium cladding made up to make it look like the triangles were there as well. So fill the whole triangles up with solar, but to try and find a compromise between the aesthetics and then also the budget constraints of the project is then to come up with conventional PV modules that we could colour to make the solar PV, but then just use aluminium clad to put all around it to make it all blend into the roof.
So you basically tried to make solar panels not look like solar panels.
Yes, that was what we set out to do. So originally we're going to try and make them all white. That was the original plan, to have white panels. So we went out to a few different companies we met with. We got some white panels. We got a few brought into the country as samples. So we went with that way, but to get the amount of efficiency we needed, we couldn't get enough panels on the roof in the white colour. So it was a bit of a compromise back and forth. So we ended up going with a slightly darker grey.
So what, if you changed the colour to grey, your efficiency in the panel was going up?
Yeah, so with the coloured PV modules, the darker the colour, the more efficiency you can gain. So the lighter the colour, the less efficient they are. The lighter the colour, it blocks more of the light coming through. So the darker the colour, the more efficiency and the more output we could get from the panels.
Right. Now, look, I've worked on government projects myself, and the bureaucracy normally drives you batty. I mean, look at my hair. But how did you kind of work with whoever was your liaison person and said, oh, well, look, we're going from a white, now we want to go to a slightly greyish colour, and how do you get that approved? I mean, you've spent a lot of time in the fish markets, have you?
Yeah, a lot of time, a lot of samples. So we ended up bringing in, I think, 12 different shades of coloured panels to get approval. So we were working with one of the largest tier 1 builders. They were the principal contractor for the project. And then there was a government agency who funding and actually the property developer. So I had to go through a few different channels to get them to approve it. So every time we brought in a different colour, there was a mock-up installation in Botany. So we'd go out to that site, we'd install all the different colours onto the roof. They'd come out, they'd look at it at different angles and at different times of the day and with different perspectives to try and find. So that took nearly 12 months of back and forths of multiple samples coming in from different manufacturers and trying to get them to finally agree to this is the colour we're going to go with, and that's how we're going to push forward from there.
Right. The architect had a say as well, or did it stop
there?
there?
Yep. So I went through Infrastructure New South Wales, who's the property developer, as well as the architect. So the architect was I think a Denmark company, and they also had an Australian affiliate who was working on the project. So there was quite a few different decision makers in terms of picking the colour. So for us, it was just about every time they wanted a different shade, we just find a different shade and take it in there. So same again, can you do it? Yeah, we can make it happen.
Where do you get the coloured panels from, by the way? Who you were working with at that point in time?
Well, so that was the next challenge. We finally got a decision on the colour. So we got a colour. Everyone signed off on the colour. Everyone was happy to
year for
proceed.
the colour, was it?
Yep, it was a year for the colour. So then we got our first batch of panels in for our QA. So I actually engaged a company out of Sydney Uni. So they were my quality control and third-party quality control company. So I actually got my first batch of panels in. We just got 12 modules so that we could do the whole dummy installation at Botany to make sure.
Because it's 3 panels per side, is
Yep.
it? So that's one pod 12.
No, so there's one pod is 3, but we had a mock-up installation which was 4 pods over in Botany.
Right.
So we got the 12 panels in so that we could do the whole mock-up installation, the correct colour. Then when we got it in, the standard wasn't quite up to what we were hoping it would be. The manufacturer wasn't willing to sort of change some of the processes which were required to get the perfect sort of colour into the panel. So there was quite a bit of back and forth, and then we ended up.
So what? They looked rippled, or they looked pimpled,
Yeah, so we
or?
used what's called a Sylaxis film, which is like a foil that goes inside underneath the glass on the module, and it gets compressed in behind the encapsulant to colour the panel. And there was a bit of creasing in there, there's a bit of shadow. We then questioned how the IEC accreditation for that panel had come to fruition, how they were able to provide an IEC. We then discovered that wasn't sort of going to be done correctly, and we had some concerns about whether we were going to get IEC accreditation for that particular manufacturer.
Just to explain that IC accreditation shows that panel is well built or is following certain standards or doesn't get a rebate if it's not installed appropriately, if it's not certified appropriately. Why do you care?
Well, there's multiple IEC standards. The IEC standard there's multiple ones for solar PV manufacturing. It just ensures the quality of the product. And then we also plan on rolling this out commercially as well as not just for this project. So now our next endeavour is we're going to introduce this locally into the market in all different colours, in standard sort of roof colours. So we wanted to pick a manufacturer who not only could deliver this project for us properly, but then we'd also get CEC listing and we could move forward with that product in a few different colours.
Such for let's say cladding of a skyscraper in a certain colour and it's actually solar at the same time.
Correct. Yep.
Oh, wow, good idea. Yeah,
Yep.
okay. So you're persisting and then the manufacturer goes, well, yeah, we're building it and then a few little production issues with the crinkles and the creases, but also we're not able to give you the quality control assurance. Is that it? That was the answer, was it?
So we'd gone through all this process to finally get a decision on the colour. We had our manufacturer, we got the panels in. But before we went into mass production for the project, we decided to...
You just asked one day, is this, where's your IC certification, or how did you actually find out that you've gone this far and the product still wasn't the right product? Did you wake up one day and had a phone call, or the architect or the building supervisor asked you for the certification? How did it actually come about that you worked it out after all this journey with the manufacturer that they weren't willing to give you the ISC certification for the quality of the product?
Well, once we got to that stage, we got the 12 we installed and we weren't happy with the product. I then flew over to Munich met with the manufacturer that we're using.
But was that a Swiss or a German by then?
German manufacturer.
So you moved from Swiss to German, and
It was a Swiss technology, and the German was the manufacturer. So they were the panel manufacturer. So we went over there. We had a meeting with them. The meeting didn't go as well as we'd hoped. They weren't very willing to provide us with too much of the certification.
so tell me how that went. Did they go very German and say nine?
Yes, very much so. Yep.
I mean, didn't they see the potential of you being a client that introduced a new product literally to the world in terms of the cladding and the high prestige on that project or so?
That's what we were hoping for, but that's not sort of how it eventuated. So we decided to part ways with the manufacturer.
So now you're back to square one.
Yeah, almost. Yep. So we I then obviously I've been in solar for quite a while, so I did speak to quite a few different people in the industry to see if they knew anyone else who was into that BIPV space and could make some customized panels.
By the way, do you tell your bosses at the fish market that you're at the moment down the river without a float?
Well, I knew there was quite a few delays in the project. I knew we had time to get there. The mandate was to provide an IEC accredited PV module. So I knew we still had time. I knew we could still deliver. So I then went on the search to find another manufacturer. I ended up getting in contact with a doctor at Sydney Uni, who's a doctor of renewable energy.
You can say his name.
Hey?
Anybody we know? Anybody famous?
I'm not sure. No, Oh Young. He's a good guy. He works at JA now.
No.
So, so then he put me in contact with a company that manufactured this sort of product in China. So we ended up flying over there to have a meeting with them. It was quite impressive actually. They had quite a lot of different product installed in Asia, a few jobs in Europe. So we went and had a look at those sort of projects. And then they were able to supply us with everything that we needed, all ISC accreditation. They also offered to help with the CC accreditation. So we've now got, long story short, we ended up going ahead with that company.
You must have gone, oh my God, I've got the gold mine here. They knew what you were doing. They were willing to help you. They were willing to assist, and they had done similar things.
Yeah, yep. So it was quite fortunate actually that we found this manufacturer to work with. So now we've gone ahead with those companies. They sent us a few samples so that we could do the same thing. We sent them to a third party to get them quality checked. They all came back quite good.
First question, there's German goodies. Did you ever get them tested and they didn't actually conform to specs? Or
Yes, yep.
So you got test results back that said this panel will be a problem down the track.
Yeah, so we weren't able to get proper flash test data from those modules. The manufacturer wasn't prepared to do it for us either, so we got it third-party tested, whereas with the company that we're using now, we got a flash test results from the manufacturer, also third-party testing, IEC accreditation for every single one that was required, and then we also now have those products CC listed as well. So we're starting to bring them in a few different colours.
There must have been like a relief moment where you felt actually somebody speaking your language.
I think the relief moment was we went through all that process. I got that new manufacturer approved. We got all the accreditation sort of stuff. We got the samples in. I think the relief come from when we actually went over there while they're doing production. So we went over in production. I took one of the builders over with us. We went over to the facility to inspect the quality of the product before it was shipped in for the project. I think getting there and seeing the finished product in the plant, doing the factory tour and going through the actual finished product in the country, in China at the manufacturing plant, and seeing that it was actually there, physical, it was all done. There was...
it wasn't any more theory. It was actually physically really being made, was it?
Yes, yep.
Right.
Yep.
Now, did you tell the German engineers ever that the Chinese were able to do it and they threw in the towel?
We haven't bridged that with them yet. I haven't seen them since. So it's a bit of a distance to get over there to let them to rub it in, but they'll see all the photos and the videos of the completed project in the next couple of months. So I'm sure they'll be aware.
So let's say, you got the panel now. So just to explain, I think it was a square panel. How many is per the triangle? Is 3 panels or is
so
one each?
We got 3 panels per triangle.
Right.
We also used a customized mounting system. So we got the actual frame of the module is the same color as the glass, so it's all blends into the roof. We use a mounting system that's powder coated the same color as the actual panels themselves. So once you get about 4 or 5 meters back from the pod, you can't actually tell there's any PV there.
Right. And it's one square panel, and then the rest of it, because it's a triangle, is just filled in with, what's it, aluminium?
Yes.
That has the same color.
Yep.
And then you've got the mounting bits, etc., and the clamps that are holding it, and they again have the same color.
Yep.
And because, most people see the roof from a bit of a distance, it all kind of blends in.
Yes.
And there's one panel per, so the pod has, is it a 3? It's a triangle, so it has three sides, and therefore you can put 3 modules.
There's 2 sides, so there's 3 panels on the northwestern side.
Right.
So each pod has 3 panels on each northwestern side.
So you're able to get 3 panels
Yep.
onto one triangle, is
Correct,
it?
yeah.
Okay. Yep. And so what do you do with the other sides of the pod? You didn't put panels on every side of the pod?
No, so they're just aluminium cladding and then louvers with lighting in it to give that aesthetics at night, so you can see the wave pattern. Yeah.
They're little louvers with lights in it.
Yes. Yep.
Giving it a bit of a pretty picture.
Yeah, a bit of ambience. Yep.
But that's not on the side that the solar panel is.
No.
You're not asking the solar panel to move up and down, do you?
No, that was one challenge I don't think we could have done.
All right. So in terms of the technology in the panel, I assume at that time, age-wise, is it N-type? Is it TopCon? What are you using?
They're an N-type 400-watt cell, and then in flash test data, we end up getting between 335 and 343 watts per panel out. That's with the color film installed, which is quite a good result. That's a lot more than what we'd actually come up with in the theory design. So we did plate them when we did the CC listing. They were only plated at 330 watts, so they're all a true positive tolerance panel.
So what's the potential, and how do you see a potential for a colored panel that is maybe aesthetically taking that as your number one over the efficiency and output, and therefore you can give a whole color range? And what kind of colors did you actually find you could offer?
Well, we still feel there's still a segment of the Australian market where there's still quite a few people out there that just don't like the look of solar panels, and there's a lot of nice architecturally buildings out there in homes and small commercial buildings as well that they have the potential to put solar on there, but they just blatantly don't like the look of it, don't like the aesthetics of it. So what we're looking to do is just to bring in modules in different colors, similar to match sort of the ColourBond colors. So it's sort of commercially on all roofs we can be putting these things in, and then basically installing the panels that blend in with the roof, and also for some sites in the facade as well, so that we can install the PV on the facade or on the roofs, and it sort of blends in aesthetically. So they still get the benefit of the PV, so they're still saving their electricity bills, offsetting their carbon, but they're not having to look at the actual solar panels as well.
Right. So it's really the architects and the Danish designers that you want to, and I'm not being snobby about it, because there is a market. I mean, it seems to be the richer the people, the less they like solar because they think it looks ugly.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you can embed it into existing roof forms in a way that it's not obvious, there would be a winner on that one.
Definitely. That is the idea. Obviously, it is cost-wise a little bit more costly than conventional solar, but there is a solution there that we can put solar basically anywhere.
These pods are relatively close to each other. Do you therefore have shadowing issues, and do you need to have optimizers on them, or what?
So with these one, we use the SMA inverters with the shade fix technology inside them. So each pod is there's a fair bit of distance. It's quite to scale. It's quite a impressively sized building. It doesn't look it when you have a photo from far back, but when you're on the roof, it's quite a large project. So there's quite a bit of distance there. There is some shadowing. There was a few design challenges on the roof, so we had to put a few more modules on to get that 5% than what we were hoping originally. But it has worked out in the end.
Okay, so now let's move back to the project. So you've got the pod, you've got the sign-off. The department must have felt a bit happier too at that point, didn't it? When you had the first sample and it finally worked after the first, that didn't work.
Yeah, definitely. So I think there was a lot of relieved personnel, whether they said it to me or not. I'm sure that there was a lot of discussion in the background that they were doubting whether we could bring it over. But we end up getting there and getting that.
Okay.
Product,
so now you've got, I think Multiplex were the original builder. They're hired by the government.
Yep.
You then have a builder that actually does the work. And I don't know if that's the ones that engaged you. But then there were other issues coming through in terms of the builder actually at one stage going bankrupt.
Well, Multiplex was the principal contractor, so they were the builder. We were engaged directly through Multiplex and Infrastructure in New South Wales.
Right.
They had a builder that was involved doing the building the actual pods. So we worked with them, but we weren't engaged directly by them. We were the principal contractor on the project. But they were there to build the pods, and they actually did the cladding. So they took the cladding part of it, and they actually built the pods for us to mount the PV to. And yeah, we worked with them. It sort of took quite a lot longer than we had anticipated. We worked on Glebe Island around the corner from the fish markets. So that's where the build was happening. So we were building the little pods on the ground, putting the solar onto them. We had quite an extensive QA process. So because we were building them in little individual pods with only 3 panels getting built per day, we had to make sure that every time one of those 3 pods was completed, there was quite a extensive testing. So we had an ITP for each of those pods, which just goes through all the different test procedures to ensure that every single pod was done perfectly. So when it got up to the main site, it was all going to work, obviously. So we built them over there. So we were there for nearly 7 months or 8 months on that site. I had guys there full time.
How many staff did you have?
It depends on the day, but 3 to 4 staff there every day for
3 panels.
Yes. Yep. So very frustrating process. Yeah.
I'm doing 3/4 of a panel a day.
Yep.
Matt pays me well for that.
Yeah. Union sites, they do get paid quite well.
It was a fully unionized site too. So in terms of access and harness and signing in on the site and all of those things, it would have been right up to the T about that, huh?
Yeah, definitely. Yep. So we were there for about 8 months. And then we say what will happen, we're building the pods there. They were putting them on a barge, then they were barging those pods around to Glebe, and then they were lifting them up with the crane and actually putting them up onto the main site. So we had quite a few delays at the start of the thing. Because we brought all those panels in, we warehouse them in our warehouse in Gregory Hills. So our Gregory Hills warehouse was completely chockers with a container and a half of solar PV panels that sat there for quite a while.
And then you're still trying to run your normal business on top of it.
Yeah, yep.
Working around these boxes of everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. So then probably not nearing completion, about sort of 3/4 of the way through, the builder that was in charge of building the pods actually went into liquidation. So there was a big delay in us getting the roof part of it done. So we had most of the project there. We were just onto the wiring of the project.
So hang on a second. Okay. So it's finally going. You got the panels there. You're building the pods. How many pods you had built by the time the builder goes past?
I think we just finished the last pod on Glebe Island.
Right.
But they weren't all installed on the main site. So they sort of went until there was a bit of a delay there.
So you had them sitting still on the ground,
Yep.
ready to go. And how did you have a feeling that they weren't going too well? And was there kind of any warning? And what did you think? How did you find out on that day when you go, oh, finally we're on a bit of a straight, and then there's another hiccup because now you can't get onto the roof. It's all stopped, isn't it? So what happened? How did you find out?
Yeah, so there's a bit of a delay. So we obviously we couldn't get the roof part of it wiring completed. So I think the project was full of delays. There was the crane that fell over as well at the start of the project.
Oh, the crane that fell over, is it?
Yeah, yep, that was on that job as well. Yep.
But wind or badly balanced or was your pod too heavy?
No idea. It was convenient for us. We had quite a lot of work on, so the crane fell down. There was a delay for a few months. We thought, it works out well. We've got a few extra jobs we can fit in between losing the guys over to the main site again.
Right.
Yep.
I don't know if did that make the paper?
Yeah, definitely. It was
the fish market crane falling over did make the paper, did it?
Yep.
Right. I can't remember seeing that. But okay, so the crane fell over. Okay, well, we're waiting. So then the builder, how did you find out? Did you read about it? Did somebody tap you on the shoulder? Did suddenly you come to the site and it was locked up? Or
Well, our guys are working quite closely with a lot of their workers because we had to work on top of each other to try and put our solar panels onto the pod that they were building. So a lot of their workers told us what had happened. So they that caused a few months delay in terms of the actual roof works to get completed.
is this again one of those COVID-related overruns in costs and things with supply, or did they just not expected it to be so difficult? Or I mean, building a pod should be straightforward. Do you know any reason why the builder found it too difficult?
I don't think anything with a customized project like that is straightforward. I think so many different changes in terms of customized building. There was nothing generic about the build. I'm sure that the project delays, and I'm not quite 100% sure why they closed up. But
By the way, does this project cause cash flow problems, or how do you kind of get paid when things delay so much?
It did quite a few times actually, especially with the supply of the modules. We had to fund, so we had to source funding. So that was another bit of a challenge. I had to go around and do a little bit of capital raising because we had to pay for the entire manufacturing, supply, shipping, and then we couldn't actually invoice until, probably quite rightly, they weren't going to pay until the product was here and in the country, and they could actually physically see that the panels were here. So there was a 3 to 4 month period there where we actually had to fund the entire build of the panel, the manufacturer, the shipping, the warehousing until we got that money back. So there was a little capital raising project that we had to do in the
Amongst
meantime.
mates and stuff like that, or did you really go onto the market?
No, not with mates. No, with we went into the market. I spoke to a few different people that we could.
So you had to pay interest on top of that, then, would you?
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
Wow, either there was a decent margin in it, or you just liked the experience.
There's a little bit of both. Yeah.
Right. I mean, without going into numbers, but if you one day lie in the bed and close your eyes and do the numbers in your head, did this job make you any money, or is it just prestige?
I don't think we would have. We're definitely not going to buy a Lamborghini and put the roof racks on there, but we wouldn't have lost money. And I think the experience that we got from doing such a unique and challenging project is worth a lot more.
And do you think it's a bit like making an IKEA bed, where when you do it the first time it takes you 3 hours and 2 packets of glue and a bit of nerves, and by the second time you know all the tricks to watch out for and it goes half the time? Do you think it's going to be a bit like that?
Oh, 100%. So that was our first real forte. We've done quite a lot of projects with government agencies. We've worked with local councils. We've worked with New South Wales government directly, a couple of little federal government projects as well. So we have a bit of experience with that sort of level of quality assurance and compliance. But this was our first real forte into the large tier 1 builders. They have a sort of a next level of expectation in terms of design and
Safety
and compliance and safety. The safety part wasn't too big of an issue. We have that sort of, I would say, more around the compliance, around quality assurance and design. Like for most commercial projects, we have 4 or 5 plans. We have an elevated roof plan, a single line diagram, a design of where the modules are going to go. But for this project in particular, I think we had 14 or 15 sets of plans. And then on each of those plans, 12 or 13 revisions on each of those plans. So in terms of
that's over 130 or so just in my head.
Yes, it was quite the challenge. So I think in terms of that sort of experience in what's expected on those larger tier 1 sites and in terms of design and compliance in terms of that sort of experience has been sort of invaluable.
So how did you then get back on track?
So once we got back on the site, we've been there the last couple of months, getting all the wiring and all the.
They got a new builder now, or what happened there?
I don't think so. I think they got a few different of the subcontractors that the builder was using to come in and finish off those, and then they're all contracting directly to Multiplex, I believe.
Right. Do you just put the pods on top and they sit there and you don't hope for wind, or do you have to bolt them in and you've got to be very careful with the waterproofing? And what are the challenges there?
So with the waterproofing, we had we gave the builder. So the builder was in charge of getting our conduits and our sort of penetrations done for us. So we didn't take control of any of the waterproofing part of it. In terms of wind loading, we have our own structural engineer. So we use him for. We have our own structural engineer that we use for wind uplift. We do that on most projects. So every project we get our engineer to check to make sure that the roofs are going to be able to hold the weight of the panels we put on, but then also to check the wind uplift. So that was obviously one probably more than one, probably quite a few design revisions on some of those plans. Was different wind uplift values that we had to meet.
Right. Because, I mean, it is close in a bay, exposed to, kind of could be a good onshore wind hitting them, etc. So how many panels we got all up now up there?
I think we've got 864 modules installed.
Right. Do you got one or two spares in the warehouse?
Yeah, we had to keep a few spares, and then we end up ordering quite a few extras that we're going to start, because we always plan on getting them CEC accredited. So now that we do have CEC accreditation for these panels, we're going to start installing them on different projects as well.
Now, is the system now turned on, or are you still waiting for that moment?
The boys are actually there this week and next week doing all the commissioning. So we've got the Fluke IR testers on site at the moment. So they're IR testing all the installation, all the cabling. We're doing IV curve testing on all the panels as well. So we expect that to sort of come online within the next fortnight.
Any problems with any of the panels that suddenly, because I mean, you said, they were well built, but then I hear they're on a barge, they're going through the air. I mean, things can kind of swing a bit and go dinged and donked. There was issues?
There was quite a handful of panels that did get broken by the crane. Obviously, there's quite a few slings and there's a lot of people working up on the roof. So there has been about, I think, 8 or 9 panels that we've had to replace on the roof just to accidental damage.
Right. And every time Matt is still smiling.
Yep.
Jesus.
I
couldn't do your job, quite frankly. But okay, so the commissioning is happening now. You used the SMA inverter. Which model did you go for, and why did you pick those?
We used the SMA Core 2s inverters, the 110 kilowatt inverters. We used those because of how many MPPT trackers they had. At the time, when we did the original design and submission, that was over 2 years ago. So at the time, that was sort of the best inverter on the market in terms of flexibility in design and also the number of MPPT trackers that we had available.
How many per unit? This is basically for people who watch this, is the inputs that I can put different strings in. So obviously the more inputs I have, the more flexibility I have in the design. But how many do those SMAs have?
I think they have 12 MPPT trackers per inverter.
Right. Okay.
So we ended up designing the system to have 27 strings per inverter coming down. And then we individually string fused all those strings inside the plant room.
Right. Okay. So what, you end up with 2 or 3 inverters then?
We ended up with 2 inverters, two 110 kilowatt SMA inverters on site.
And then they're slightly oversized.
Yep.
Okay, got it. Now, I'm being a little bit facetious here, but years ago, my dad got a painting painted of a self-portrait, and it's a painting in a painting which had a timber frame. And inside of it was another timber frame, but that one was painted. And the painted timber frame and the real timber frame looked exactly the same. I went back to Germany 20 years later. The painting's been hanging in the sun. The real timber frame is now brown, and the timber frame in the painting is still the original pine color. What I'm trying to get to is, what happens if the solar panel coloring in the Australian sun is slightly different to the way that the aluminium, the powder coat, is changing color? Then you would not get that unique effect anymore. Are they then going to complain to you or to the powder coat guys?
Hopefully the powder coat guys.
No, but I mean, can you see what I'm talking about? I mean, colors do different colors. Looks all the same, but with the sun, different colors on different backgrounds do actually change their coloring. So how do you handle that?
So that was one of the quality assurance projects that we had to undertake, is we had to make sure that there's a certain type of powder coating that we had to use, which they also use. So the actual powder coating of our frame, our mounting system, and the aluminium is all actually done under the same quality standard and the same type of powder coat. And then we did get quite a few. We did quite a few quality assurance in terms of the actual color and the fading of the color PV module as well. So we ended up getting to a spot where they gave us a 20-year guarantee on the color. We've got that in a manufacturer's warranty as well.
Okay. Well, I'll see you in 15 and we'll see how we go. I'm sure the Opera tiles look a little bit less white than they did on the first day, but that's the Australian sun, close to water. Now, talking about the quality assurance type thing, you seem to mention that quite a few times. So in those more major projects, do you have to do extra training for staff, or is it more paperwork? And how do you now set yourself apart, let's say, from other solar companies by having gone through that process?
Yeah, so what we do now is, we've been doing it for quite a few years now. What we do is every time we come up with a project, we develop what's called an ITP, which is basically a testing procedure that we have. It's a quality assurance program that we ensure, so that we get all of our staff to submit certain different test results and different photos at different stages of installations. So we do that for commercial jobs as well as residential jobs, so that that way we can ensure that all of our installs, no matter which of our employees or which of our contracting teams are out there doing the installs, they're all done to the highest quality standard. And we use those ITPs to ensure that none of the steps are missed, and also every single step in our installation procedure is followed to the highest quality standard.
Now, I had an install done here by your team, and I noticed that when it came to the health and safety aspects and the, double checking what are the dangers on the job, etc., they had kind of like an automated system nearly on their phone. How does that work?
Yeah, so we've integrated all of our systems in our digital. So we have, in terms of for the safety systems, we have a digital check-in procedure. So when the guys get to site, whether it's the fish market's a large tier 1 site, or it's a 6.6 kilowatt install that we're doing just down the road on a residential property, we all follow the same basic principle. When they get to site, they have they got to sign on to a SWIMS and also do a job safety analysis. So there's quite a few tick boxes. It's not too in depth for them when they get to site, so they can see and they can acknowledge if there's any safety risks or any issues that they need to address before they start work. And they go through that quick procedure just to make sure that the site is safe for them to work. Obviously, we don't want any issues and we don't want any safety concerns for our staff, contractors, or our clients that we're working for either. And then so that then they fill that in, they sign it. It geotags where they filled it in, and then also the time stamps when they signed it as well.
Right. Okay. Well, that'll help in tenders and things like that too, that you got those qualifications now. What are they specifically called again?
Yeah, so we're fully ISO accredited. So we've got the ISO accreditation for environmental management, quality management, and also workplace health and safety management. It just ensures that companies, they follow a certain set of procedures to ensure that they are. It's a actual internationally recognised accreditation, our one. So it's on I think it's a JAS reporting. So it's all listed on a international register, and then every year we have to go through an audit process. So they come in, they go through our all of our paperwork and all of our systems. They also go out to site to ensure that not only do we have those systems in place, but we're also following those systems as well. Yeah,
it's one thing to say I can do it.
Yeah.
But then the next thing is you've actually got to deliver and you've got to follow the rules and the principles, isn't it, really?
Yeah, yep.
And does it sometimes add to costs?
It does add to costs in one way. So on one hand, it is quite an expensive process to set up those systems and also to manage those different platforms. But by the same token, if we know every single job is done 100% and we never have any safety issues with our staff on site, it's actually more of a cost-saving exercise because we never have to find ourselves going back to resolve issues. We never have people going on workers' comp or anything because they're getting work-related health or injuries
and stuff. Yeah. Okay, it makes sense. You got that project close to completion now, and as I said, it's been with its challenges. In the meantime, you literally developed a new product that you now want to potentially push onto architects in Australian markets. Yep. You got a strategy for that?
Yeah, so we've started to go. We're going to do a few of the home shows. We're going to start putting these products in a few. We've got a few locations. We're going to start installing these products as well to a bit of a showcase on the benefits of this sort of a unique product.
I've got a bit of a theory that whereby we're building all these solar farms at the moment, which then requires those fairly large transmission lines all back into the city, which is adding a significant cost to the renewable projects. Why don't we just whack them on all the roofs in the city and make it mandatory that if you have a roof, you got to have solar on it, make all that solar then available and add batteries to it, and some of our issues are possibly solved. And your panel would possibly look after the people who feel solar is ugly and willing to spend a bit extra. Do you feel that maybe we should put more on roofs?
Yeah, in an ideal world, you'd have at least your self-consumption for every property covered by a renewable product that was installed. And I think with this sort of product, there's a lot more scope to sort of install solar everywhere. So those customers that just either don't have the roof space available and want an aesthetic cladding procedure that we could put on the outside of the buildings, or those customers where they just refuse or they just don't like the aesthetics of solar panels, we now have a solution for those customers as well.
Now, when you went to China, were you reasonably impressed with that factory and what they're capable?
Yeah, yep. It's quite a state-of-the-art manufacturing facility that we visited there. They had quite a few different product offerings, even to the point now where we met with them last month. They're actually doing artwork. So you can actually do the entire facade of your building. You can get something that you want printed onto there, and we can actually have that digitally printed onto the PV modules and still make that deliver an energy product, but also have an actual artwork as well.
So I could have a photo of Mother Teresa, could I?
Yes. Yep.
Right. And I can put that on the side of my building.
Yep.
And that's actually my solar system.
Yes. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, wow. That's quite impressive. Now, it's not one of the major manufacturers, your, ACO or Longi or anything like that, is it? They're specialized in building integrated product?
Yeah, so most, 2.5 years ago when we started this journey, it was very difficult to find a manufacturer. I was in China last week for the SNEC trade exhibition, and there was actually quite a few manufacturers starting to offer this sort of product. Most of the major players specialise in just PV, the Longjis, Jinko, those sort of companies. But there's a few other companies that are starting to do a bit of a BIPV product now as well. So it is starting to get more and more popular. Mostly in Europe and America, they're starting to do a few of these projects. But hopefully we start to pick that up here as well.
So where can you then put solar? On what type of spots? On a fence or on a roof, on a pergola, on a carport? I mean,
well, the sky's the limit. So we've done a few carports recently in Australia. So we've done a few carports, which we use the PV modules as the roofing structure. We now have a facade product where we can use building integrated facades. There's fencing products. We've got balustrades for high-rise buildings. So we can use the glass balustrades and we can have that as a PV module as well.
But my pool fence could become a PV module. Maybe water and electricity doesn't mix. But in the balconies, which have those glass, upmarket balconies, that could actually be...
Yeah, so there's quite a few manufacturers now that have the balustrade product. So it's a balustrade that is a PV module. Quite a few.
What about the
louvers
cabling
as well.
and all that? And what about the inverter solution? Or is that like an N-phase type micro-inverter solution? How do you solve all that?
Oh, there's a few different ways. They can be strung as similar to an existing solar panel. Inside the balustrade at the top, we can have all the cabling run through there back to a string inverter or a micro-inverter system.
That's what, somewhere in the plant room or so, is it? In a high-rise?
Yep.
But it really needs to be thought of right at the beginning and incorporated into the design, isn't it?
Yeah, so ideally we need to be part of the design phase. So we integrate these products in at the design phase of these buildings that are going in.
The problem is I feel a lot of the designers and architects are still not really on the cutting edge of what's possible. So how do you get that message across to them?
So it's definitely an education piece that we need to start educating the building designers and architects in what product is out there.
Is it done already? I mean, you told me you've been to China a lot of times. Are they already doing that in their buildings a little bit more?
Yes, yep. So overseas it is starting to pop up more and more. So we do hope that same trend comes into the Australian market as well, where new buildings and new infrastructure, they integrate a lot of renewables into the building designs.
Wow. I mean, that would make perfect sense because, I mean, don't they say that, every 15 minutes, all the energy needs for a day is just coming through the sun onto the earth. So theoretically, we should have enough energy to run our planet. It's just that we haven't learned to harness it appropriately.
Yeah. Well, you watch the sci-fi things; they put the cube around the whole planet.
Yeah, I'm more of a vampire movie guy, but anyway, that's a fine thing. So, what type of customers is looking for a solar carport?
Well, solar carports are good because it gives you residentially, it gives you another alternative to putting the solar panels on the roof. It also, it's a dual purpose. It's also functional, so you've got somewhere to put your car out of the weather, but then also that space is being used to generate energy as well. And then commercially, we're starting to see a lot more as well. So shopping centres,
So you got
public places as well. That way you're utilising that car space. Same thing as a dual function purpose. So you're protecting the cars from the weather, but then you're also generating energy with that space as well.
Right. When I'd say with EVs coming, that's possibly going to be more and more popular then, is it?
Yeah, yep. So with one of the carports we installed, we integrated the EV into one of the posts. So it had all the PV modules on the top with the EV charger directly connected to the DC bus of the inverter.
Right. So you basically just drive into your carport and you got your charger there and it coming straight from the top.
Almost, yeah. Yep.
And would it worth down the track to maybe even add a battery close to it, or would that become part of the house?
Yeah, ideally you'd make that all integrated, so you'd have the carport at the front, some PV on the house with a battery system, and then the EV plugged into that as well.
I mean, if you take the carport and put it to the back of the house, then it becomes actually a pergola.
Yeah, yep.
So
the
you
same
can have
concept, yep.
Yeah, you can have a solar pergola.
Yeah.
Do you like my
It's a lot more rhyming, isn't it? Better slogan. Yep.
Right. Okay. But again, that's going to come through more because I got the logic that a lot of the roofs are not big enough, especially closer to the city, to actually give you a 10, 12, 15, 20 kilowatt solar system. So you will need to add something to it, and possibly a carport or a pergola with solar on it would actually be the way to expand your system. And why do we need a bigger system? Because we now can also look after the night consumption through the battery. So for those reasons, I mean, are you finding that overall in residentials, the systems have been getting bigger?
Yeah, definitely. And then also coming back to the architects, they always design such a pretty looking house, but it's not always functional. So in terms of being able to use the roof, so sometimes they have a nice big house, but 25 different little hips and ridges all over the roof. So there isn't any roof space to actually install the PV. So that's where solar carports and solar pergolas and that sort of solar facades, that's where those sort of products would definitely come into their own. So you could still have that nice looking roof, but then you also can generate still power within the property as well.
Have you ever put panels straight on a wall so they're not even in an angle and all that? And what's the result for output?
No, there'd obviously be an effect on the efficiency because you're going to get a diffused light as opposed to direct input into the module.
Well, I have seen some north walls for 2/3 of the day just baking away. I mean, they would be quite ideal because they're getting direct sunlight, especially towards the maybe late spring, summer, early autumn days. But you've never done really an experiment with facade type solar at all?
Not yet. We've got one facade system going in shortly. So once we get that commissioned and integrated, I can let you know how it goes. A lower inefficient system is still better than no system at all.
But tell me about that facade system. How big is it and how did you get that one?
So the facade system is just we're just doing a trial on a facade product. So we're bringing it in to install on one of our factory units. And it's just it's a cladding product that goes on the outside of the wall. Similar things, that all connects together, goes back to a PV inverter. So we're basically using the facade of the building to generate power as opposed to the roof.
So what's your own impression actually to China and about China? You've gone there a few times in your solar capacity. Has it changed a lot? I mean, our media, we really kind of, on one hand, it's our biggest trading partner, but then every time Donald Trump flaps his wings, we kind of fly in tandem. What's your own personal opinion on China and your impression?
For me, I enjoy going there. I've been there quite a few times. The infrastructure wise and the manufacturing, the size and the scale of the manufacturing is very impressive. I've been to a few other facilities around the world, and nothing really compares to the manufacturing facilities that personally that I've been to. I find the ones that they're in China astronomically bigger than ones I've seen anywhere else in the world.
Right. But has it changed also? Has it become more modernized even in the last 10 years, or is it slowly, moving along the same pace?
Yeah, well, when I was there a few weeks ago, I went to a site and it was almost completely automated from start to finish. And we actually walked the entire production line, which was about 450 meters long for the production line. And,
is that solar or
that
inverters?
was that was a solar manufacturer, yeah.
Right.
It was about 450 meters long, the production line. And then we got to the end, you could actually see across, and there was 14 or 15 lines all going through. So the scale was very impressive.
So what, you walked 450 in one production line? It wouldn't take them 450 meters to make one module, did it? Or they were starting from the wafers?
Starting from wafers
all
the way through to the modules at the end, yeah.
In one line?
Yeah.
Not like
impressive.
wafer factory shipping it little robots over to the
Yeah,
module.
there's robots running around everywhere. They're just the scale of the infrastructure and the manufacturing was just next level.
And so that was 450, but you said they had more than one of those lines, did they?
Yeah, they had 14 lines, I believe it was, yep.
14 times 450 all the way through.
Yeah, it was very impressive, yeah.
Wow. And you sell that module, by the way?
We do, yeah. Yep. So we're doing a large government housing rollout with that particular manufacturer. That's why we went over to have a look.
Again, quality assurance and all of that, is it?
Yes, yep.
Whew. Okay. And Australia wants to go into solar too, and we're going to shake up the world with $1 billion of investment by the federal government. Do you think we've got a chance?
Well, I visited 3 manufacturers, and each of them said that they had just invested $1 billion into each of their manufacturing plants individually. So I don't know how far.
And that's already an existing plant that is already running and had many billions invested.
Yeah.
And so just to upgrade that plant, they have just spent $1 billion. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, they've all obviously new technologies coming out. They're all doing the back contacts now, HJT cells. So I think the different technology, every time it comes in, they've got to change that production line. So there's those sort of manufacturers now doing a lot of investment into their own production line. So
$1 billion sounds like big, but in the solar game, it's not that big, is it?
I don't believe so. Not in terms of that scale of manufacturing, no. It'd be good to see manufacturing here in Australia. I just don't know if they would be able to compete with those larger, more established manufacturers.
Look, Matt, I'm in admiration of your patience, of your persistence, of your optimism, of being able to deliver and having delivered successfully. So I really appreciate you come today and share it, because, guys, we all want to grow the company. We always want to have a bit more of a challenging project. And so if you want a person or be inspired by a person that has done that, I think this podcast has just done it. So thank you so much, Matt.
Thanks for having us.
Cheers.
Please support the channel by liking the video, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, and check out all our other videos. Want more energy answered? Visit yourenergyanswers.com for quality energy products, tools and calculators, and find your quality local installers. You're still here? I'll see you next time. Bye.